Hello, Robs. We're back with Anyone's Son, a true story by Roberta Roche with Harry de la Roche Jr. I'd like to finish this chapter off, which I believe is chapter, 10? Yeah. All right, section 32. The wire services picked up the story, and by 9 a.m. on Monday, TV and newspaper reporters were at Bergen County Courthouse for the start of the jury selection. No one was sure that Monday whether my trial would get off the ground because of the newspaper stories, but I was put in handcuffs and driven to the main jail, so I'd be there and ready if the jury was to be picked. My blue suit was waiting at the main jail, so I dressed in that and a shirt and tie. Then I sat in a holding cell until 11:30. Elsewhere in the building, the prosecutor's office had served a subpoena at the Record, demanding the surrender of the tape recordings of my interview with John Banazuski and ordering the reporter and the newspaper's custodian of records to appear at the courthouse at 10 a.m. Peter Banta, attorney for the paper, came to represent the Record and to meet in Judge Madden's chambers with John Taylor and Richard Salkin, who'd be trying the case for the state. Mr. Banta stated the interview tapes were in a locked file cabinet, and then he announced that the newspaper was not about to comply with the subpoena on the basis that recordings were privileged material and legally protected from forced disclosure by what was then a 3-week-old amendment to the New Jersey Shield Law. The Shield Law prohibited the courts, legislature, and other office bodies from forcing newsmen to reveal anonymous sources. Supposedly, the new amendment broadened the law's provision to protect the confidentiality of reporters' notes, tapes, and other material gathered while researching a news story. When Mr. Bana made that statement at the private hearing, Judge Madden ordered an indefinite postponement in the jury selection so both the defense and state attorneys could file certain motions. I didn't know about this until 11:30 when one of the officers in the jail put in a call to Judge Madden's court and learned about the postponement. Then I was told to take off the blue suit and get ready to go back to the annex. I was upset about the delay and the fact that it meant more waiting, but Uncle John, who was angry that I'd given the interview, let me know that I was at fault for opening my mouth. The next few days saw motions about turning over the tapes. As a starter, the attorney for the Record, who wanted Judge Madden to declare it was illegal for the prosecutor to demand tape records, filed the motion to suppress the subpoena because of the amendment to the Shield Law. The prosecutor contended that the Record identified me as its source and, as a result, lost its right to protect tapes and other materials not included in the story. In turn, John Taylor demanded that the papers surrender the tapes to him alone without allowing the prosecutor's office access to them. The big surprise, however, came November 2nd, when I was informed in the afternoon that I was being returned to the condemned, deteriorating main jail for protective custody because of rumbles and rumors that my life had been threatened in the annex. At a private meeting earlier in the day, Superior Court Judge Theodore Troutwain, who served as the assignment judge, told my attorney he was ordering the move and instructing I be kept under guard while waiting for my trial. As usual, I kept my feelings to myself, boo-hoo, and appeared to be quiet about it, but I certainly didn't like the idea of going back to that building. When I arrived, I was placed in a cell on the second floor, and since I was the only inmate there, it seemed like solitary confinement. The cell was white, but the window had been covered with black paint. I had nobody to talk to, and for the weeks I was there, my visitors were limited to my lawyer, my minister, and the Greers. Both Steve Madriperla and Tink Thompson were turned away when they came. I got a chance to get out of my cell on Friday, November 18, when I attended arguments on the tapes at a hearing in front of Judge Madden. By this time, it had been revealed that the tapes were only 2 hours and 40 minutes long because in the 4-hour interview, Banazuski had shut off the recorder when I requested this. The record was still unwilling to hand over the tapes, however, and its attorney had applied to Judge Madden for a quash of the subpoenas. Richard Salkin argued at length that the tapes should be surrendered. Later, John withdrew his requests for sole access to the tapes when he learned that if the record gave the tapes to him, it would waive any privilege to withhold them. If there's a possibility of a waiver, then I do not want to hear them, he said. The tapes should be sealed. The previous day, November 17th, Banazuski stated in an affidavit, or is it Banazuski? All right, I changed it all of a sudden. Banazuski stated in an affidavit that he had telephoned John Taylor on Friday, October 21st, and told him the paper would be running a story based on the interviews on the following Sunday. In this affidavit, he stated that he had asked John if John was trying to generate pretrial publicity by permitting the interview. He went on to state that John denied that was his purpose and approved the forthcoming story. John, however, disavowed this and said that on Friday, October 21st, he and staff were moving their offices to new quarters in Park Ridge because they were moving from one office to another. He did not conduct business or accept phone calls that day and did not speak with Banazuski. That's crazy. On November 23rd, in the first court ruling interpreting the new amendment to the state shield law, Judge Madden ordered the record to surrender the tapes on November 28th. The record attorney responded by saying he would appeal the decision and seek a stay of the order to surrender the tapes. Immediately after Judge Madden's ruling, Judge Troutwain ordered a change of venue to Camden, New Jersey, an industrial marketing and transportation center across the Delaware River from Philadelphia. He set December 5th for the trial and said he wanted the change of venue because it would be impossible to get Bergen County jurors who had not read or discussed the newspaper articles. John Taylor objected to the date and the move to Camden, 120 miles away, because it would create a hardship on the defense and on witnesses who would have to travel. He also mentioned that if the trial were to begin on December 5th, the jurors would not be in a good frame of mind if they had to be sequestered and away from their families before Christmas. He announced he'd appeal the change of venue and file a motion to delay the trial till after the Christmas season. Things were quiet, too quiet, sitting in an empty jail, and not many things broke up the days except for occasional visits. Once Dr. Galena came to see me because John Taylor had asked him to give me advanced preparation for what was ahead in the trial. We went through everything that day, and he tried to shake me up with Christmas pictures of my family that would call back memories. Both John and the doctor wanted to see if I would break when I saw them, because they knew that the prosecution would barbecue my hide. I talked and I looked, however, and I didn't break a bit. Finally, on November 29, the record agreed to turn over the portions of the 2-hour and 40-minute tape that had relevance to the murder. This was done to prevent I got to stop saying the because it messes up the cadence, to prevent the delay of a December 5th trial in Camden. Arrangements were made to submit both the edited version and the original tapes to Judge Madden. After he determined they were edited correctly, he was to release copies of the edited version to the prosecutor's office and to John. On that same day, Judge Troutwain turned down John Taylor's request to postpone the December 5th trial. John's next move was to go before Judge Sylvia B. Pressler of the Appellate Court Division to ask for a temporary stay of the ruling, pending a determination by a 3-judge appellate panel. He also indicated that if all appeals failed and the trial had to be in Camden, he was considering withdrawing from the case. That meant a public defender would be appointed, and this would delay things longer till the public defender got acquainted with the case. We didn't come to this, however, because Judge Pressler discussed the matter with Judge Troutwain, and Judge Troutwain reversed his decision. As soon as that happened, it was arranged that the jury would be picked in Camden County on January 3rd and then brought back to Bergen County to be sequestered during the trial. I was relieved to have it postponed till after the holidays, but I was getting restless and more than a little disturbed. I've heard some people said that at that point that I was going stir crazy and really starting to flip. But whenever I wanted to make some waves, Aunt Arden kept telling me to cool it. I didn't want to cool it, though, because I'd decided by then that I hadn't been returned to the main jail for protective custody reasons. You're finally starting to see the light, buddy. I believed that I had been sent there to get me away from everyone and from talking to the media again. Yeah, it was weird in that condemned jail, and it really pissed me off when 3 guards came in at midnight for a shakedown of my cell. They tore the entire cell apart and examined everything, and the question I wanted answered was, why did they do this at midnight? I had the feeling they were getting scared I might try suicide. While they were checking everything, they took a look at the walls, and when they saw paint was chipping, one of the guards drew a circle around the chipped off part. I said, why are you doing that? He answered, I like to draw. They weren't fooling me, however, and I knew that they were keeping track of what was already chipped so they could see if I chipped off more and swallowed it for lead poisoning. As time went on, I had definite proof I hadn't gone to the main jail for protective custody alone. By December, other inmates were there after incidents at the annex. 2 of them were a couple of dudes I was being protected from. But since there were only 2 showers on the floor, they came to my cell to shower. That wasn't what I call protective custody. It was a little strange. I didn't look forward to Thanksgiving and the memories of a year ago. Was he implying that they came to his cell to shower and rape him? Is that what he's implying there? I didn't look forward to Thanksgiving and the memories of a year ago, but as it happened, I slept through the day because I woke up feeling sick. I wasn't very hungry and couldn't eat a thing. At Christmas, the Salvation Army gave us toothpaste and shampoo. I also received a great many cards from people from the outside. Some were from people I didn't know who had somehow heard of me. The largest was a card from Christ Lutheran Church with 3 pages of signatures. I asked Pastor Immendorf to say thank you, so at the Christmas Eve service he expressed a thank you from me. Since Christmas Day fell on a weekend, no visitors were permitted, so the only thing extra for Christmas was a piece of pie. At the annex, there was a jailbreak, which provided some excitement. Then I had my own brand of excitement, or whatever you'd want to call it, when the guy in the cell across from me decided to spend his Christmas constantly spitting out of his cell and throwing water and food at my cell. He'd started to do this the Friday before, and it certainly wasn't pleasant, but I thought since it was Christmas, I would try and ignore it. I gave him some candy and a cigarette, but he threw them back at me. Then, when he wasn't throwing things, he'd hang his head against the wall and either moan or cry. Other than that activity, it was just another day. New Year's, too, was another day. But by then, I was occupied with thoughts of Camden on January 3rd. I knew Under Sheriff John Stoss and 2 officers would drive me down, and as I sat in my cell and thought, I hoped that maybe on the way we could stop at a Burger King. I'd heard they sometimes did this, and I would have liked that a lot. What I wanted most, however, was to get out of jail and go home. But then, when I'd think of the red frame house and mention I want to go home, I'd suddenly realize what I'd said and remember there was no home. I understand that somebody wrote I had a nonchalant attitude the last days before the trial, but nothing could have been less true since I definitely felt apprehensive. Now that the time for the trial had come, I knew my entire future hung on whether or not Judge Madden would allow my alleged confession to be admitted as evidence. John Taylor would fight to have it excluded and argue that I had made it after more than 30 hours of questioning without legal counsel. But he'd warned me that if the confession went in, I had to be realistic and very aware of the obvious fact that the outcome didn't look good. And there's the end of chapter 10. And the next chapter, the jury selection in Camden. And we will mark that, shut the fucking book, and get the fuck on. Goodbye, bruv. Good boy.